Hello guys, thank you very much for joining in. My name is Ganesh Nayak and I train professionals and students for FRM and CFA exams to excel in their career. And today I'm back with one more YouTube live session where I'm going to be talking about how to prepare for your FRM level 1 exam in which you're going to be planning to give in November 2021. Okay, now the idea of this session is to give you the entire flow of preparation. Okay, so give you important milestone where you should know how much amount of content that you have completed, and also to give you an idea about the books that should be used, the material that should be used, and also about the frequent questions that can come to your mind. Okay, before I start the session, I'll give you a few quick information. In case you guys have any queries during the session, you can post it on the chat part of the YouTube section, or else we can wait at the end. You can add the queries at the end also. I will be answering the queries as I move forward, and also I'll be waiting at the end for 5 minutes to convey to your queries. Okay, so we'll start with the session now. The agenda for today's session is, first we're going to be I'll be giving you a brief about the books that are going to be there in your FRM level 1. Okay, there are 4 books. I'm going to be talking about that. Then I'll also be talking about when you're preparing for the exam, there are so many material available, which material you can choose. Okay, which is what is the best part of choosing each of the material. Okay, similarly for the question bank and similarly for the calculator, I'm also going to be talking about that. Then I'll be giving you a broad order of preparation. Okay, I'll not be talking about individual chapters. I'll be talking about the buckets which I feel, the chapters which are related to the important concepts. How should you go about preparing for those buckets? Okay, then I'll be giving you some timelines, the important timelines which will help you to plan your preparation for the exam in an effective way, so that you complete as much revision, as much question solving when you appear for the final exam. Okay, so I'll be talking about those timelines of the preparation also. Then I'll be talking about when you solve the question bank, what should be your strategy? How should you go about solving the question bank? Okay. Now, I'll be also talking about how to do the revision, because in the timelines of preparation, I'll be talking about asking you to go and do revision, your first revision, second revision. So what should be the strategy that you should follow when you're going to be doing the revision? And finally, I'll be coming towards some frequent questions which a lot of FRM students have when we talk about the preparation for the exam, and we'll also be opening up for the queries at the end. But still, if you have any queries, you can post it on the chat section. We'll try to address it as soon as possible. Okay, perfect. Let us talk about the important books that we can go for FRM level 1, the books which are there for the preparation. Okay, so when we talk about FRM level 1, the entire curriculum has around 60 chapters. Okay, now these 60 chapters I will bifurcated into 4 important books. Okay, and each book is having a particular weightage. Okay, now when we talk about the first book, it has a weightage of around 20%. Okay, and that book is primarily named as Foundation of Risk Management. If I talk about this first book, okay, this book primarily has theory topics. There are 2 or 3 chapters which are calculation driven, but this book covers or tells you what is risk management, how do a bank analyze a risk, how do a bank calculates a risk, the brief introduction about it. Then it is also going to talk to you about what are the major frauds that have happened in the banking sector in the past, in the global banking sector, what are lessons we have learned from it. Okay, there is one particular chapter on 2007 2009 credit crisis. We are also going to be having a 2 chapter series which is related to calculation, that is portfolio management, in this book. Okay, at the broader level, this book contains primarily theory. There are 1 or 2 calculation chapters. Okay, and the weightage of this book is 20%. So when we have 100 questions in the exam, 20 questions are going to come from this book. Okay, let me take you towards the second book. The name of the book is Quantitative Analysis and the weightage is 20%. Now when we talk about quantitative analysis, the first part of the book starts with probability, basics of statistics, a little bit of advanced statistics where they talk about sample, population, all of that, and then it moves towards the forecasting piece. It gives you an idea about hypothesis testing, which is a core concept which banks use. Then it also talks about forecasting using linear regression and multiple regression, what all problems that it might face. And then finally it moved towards the time series analysis, which also banks use when they are doing a forecasting about what can be the portfolio value in the future. This entire book is statistically driven. I'm repeating, it's not calculation driven, it is statistical driven. In the exam, when you get question from this book, okay, there are going to be 20 questions, but when you get questions from this book, the institute is primarily going to try and test you whether you understood that statistic concept or not. They will not test you heavily on your ability to calculate. Even though it is statistical, they will check primarily on your understanding. Okay, a lot of students have fear that this book is calculation. I've never done calculation in my life. I've never taken mathematics, or I've taken a gap from my study. How will I do calculation related to statistics? Let me tell you, friends, this book, okay, even though it is statistics, please focus on understanding what is happening and how a bank will be using this in its daily operation. That is what is important for the exam. Okay, the third book, now this book is very very important. First of all, the reason being it has a weightage of around 30%. Okay, and then this book gives you a guidance on different products which the bank use or which is used in the global markets, like the futures, forwards, option, swap, FX, or structured products. So all of this entire introduction of these products, then the calculation of forward and futures is also included in this book. Now this book is calculation driven. Okay, but when you do the calculation, you will be using a different set of calculator, that is primarily your financial calculator for this exam. So all of this calculation is more or less there in your calculator. You should be aware about how to using the calculator so that you can improve the speed of doing the sums. Okay, so this book is important from the exam perspective, 30% weightage and more focused on the products which are used in the banking sector. Okay, also I'll be taking you towards the final book, which is valuation and risk model. Right now, is this book has been bifurcated into two parts. The first part is about risk models, that is war related chapters. So the focus or the idea about this book, the first part of the book, is how does a bank understand, okay, how to calculate a risk, how to identify a risk, and when we have identified the risk, what all ways are we going to be keeping aside money to protect ourselves. Okay, so that is what this first section of this entire chapter, entire book, is focused on, how to value or how to create models related to risk. The second part of this book is more on valuation models, that means bond valuation, okay, and option pricing valuation. Now why do we need this valuation methodology? The primary reason being, okay, these the products that we have seen, we also need to do the valuation of those products, because the risk of the bank depends upon the value of those products. Hence the valuation is also very very important. In the valuation piece, we are going to be talking about bond valuation, then we are also going to be talking about bond hedging. If you already have a portfolio of bond, how are you going to make sure that your bank is protected when there is a problem in the market? Okay, that is bond hedging. The next part we also which we are going to be covering is option pricing. Okay, so that is the books that we are going to be looking at in the FRM level 1 exam. The four books, 20%, 20%, 30%, 30%. Okay, so from the weightage perspective, definitely your book 3 and book 4 are very very important. Okay, so I'm going we have completed the first part. I have completed the introduction of books. Now I'm going to move about when we talk about, okay, which material to use to prepare and what calculator to use. Okay, so I'm going to give you the brief about what all different materials are available. Okay, so when we talk about books, okay, so the first and the foremost book which majority of the candidates use or prefer is the Kaplan Schweizer book. Okay, Now these books are available in Mumbai also, okay, but these books, the language is very easy, okay. It has been created from the institute book. Now when I'm saying institute book, it is about the GARP Institute notes which are created. So Kaplan Schweizer books are directly created from the GARP book, okay, and that's the reason when you're reading this Schweizer book, you'll be able to cover the entire curriculum which has been given by the institute. Okay, there are other materials also like the GARP material itself, the GARP book, but the problem with these material it is very vast. Okay, so if you want to prepare when you're having a full-time college, when you're having a full-time job, it becomes very difficult for you to go and prepare the entire institute material. That is ideally not recommended. Okay, so the next best material is the Schweizer, and also there are other materials like the Bionic Turtle material and the Wiley material. Now these materials are generally used by international audience. Okay, the reason being the language or the way of the content that is being mentioned is very technical in both of these book. Okay, so Indian students generally don't prefer to read Bionic Turtle. I am talking about the content. There are few students who definitely go for it, but majority of the student actually go and purchase Kaplan Schweizer book, okay, because it is easy to understand and the difficult concepts are being explained with a lot of examples in the book also. Okay, so for the book, I would recommend you to go for Kaplan Schweizer book. Now, the calculator piece. Now, the institute has recommended two different companies calculator. Okay, the first company is Texas Instrument, the second company is HP. Okay, now what I have seen across the market, majority of the students, what they do is they prefer Texas Instrument book, Texas Instrument calculator. Now in that calculator also there are two calculator. The first calculator is a Texas Instrument BA2 plus. Okay, now this calculator is a basic version. Okay, but for the FRM exam this basic version is enough. Okay, the cost of this calculator should be around 3k in Indian rupees, 3000 rupees. It should be the around cost for this calculator. Now the higher version of this calculator is Texas Instrument Professional. Now the cost of this calculator is around 4.5k to 5k. Okay, now this professional calculator is not very much required for the exam, because even if you have Texas Instrument BA2 plus calculator, you can go ahead and solve the questions easily, there's no problem. But there are few students who definitely go and take HP calculator, which I would not recommend you to do. The reason being, in case when you're preparing you face any problem with respect to the calculator, you would not find many people having HP. That's the reason I would recommend you can go for Texas Instrument BA2 plus calculator. That is what is generally being used by the market participants and the students. Now let me take you towards the order of preparation. Now the idea of order of preparation was to help you understand the buckets of chapters which you can start solving. Okay, I've not given the detailed list. In case you guys require the detailed list, please help. There'll be a WhatsApp number which I'll be sharing with you at the end, where you can send your WhatsApp and we'll share the Excel file with you. Okay, so let us start the order of preparation. Okay, now across the book, which means your book 1, Foundation of Risk Management, book 3, Financial Markets and Products, and Valuation of Risk Model, there are few standalone theory chapters which I would recommend you to completely read it. The reason being, those theory chapters are a bit easy to understand and this will give you the momentum to start the preparation. Now once you're done with these basic topics, you can directly go towards forward and futures and option. Now when you start the forward and futures and option, you need basic understanding of definitely what is standard deviation, what is your standard deviation, then what is variance, then what is average. All of this, the calculation basic reference is needed. So what you can do is you can go towards the random variable chapter from your book 2 and then complete this book 3 topic. Book 3, for forwards and future, there are around 5 chapters related to it. Options, there are around 4 chapters related to it. Once you are done, you can move immediately towards the option pricing bucket. There are around 3 chapters which is next in sequence from your options chapter. Okay, so you can complete this, and this ideally this is your first bucket. This is your first bucket of preparation. Now Why am I referring this first bucket? Because this should be your first milestone when you are preparing for the exam. Okay, when you have completed this first bucket, then you can move towards the second part. Okay, now once you have completed the option pricing, you can start with book 2. Now book 2 you should be going through in the entire order which is given. Then there is no need to change the order, because it's a flow of chapter which is there in your book 2, which is quantitative analysis book. Okay, so you should not worry about it. You can focus on the book 2 entirely. Okay, it starts with probability, it takes you towards statistics, then the advanced statistics, hypothesis, linear regression, time series, and then finally simulation. So you can completely go through this book entirely. Then once you're done with this, you can do a section, okay, of chapters which are related to portfolio management. There are 2 chapters related to portfolio management in your first book itself, which was calculation driven. Now why am I asking you to do this? Because it is entirely related to statistics which you have covered in your book 2. Okay, then you can also go towards, this is your second bucket, I'll just highlight it. This is your second bucket which you should be completing. Okay, and the final part is this third bucket. Now, when I'm going to read about this third bucket, in the third bucket, you should start with bond valuation and bond hedging. Okay. Now, when we talk about bond valuation in your book 4, there are around 7 chapters related to bond valuation and bond hedging. And in your book 3, which is financial markets and products, there are around 2 chapters related to bond valuation. So you should be completing those 7, 9 chapters in a complete series, because then you will be able to connect the concept easily. Okay, once you're done with this, focus on VAR chapters, book 4 valuation and risk model, first 3 chapters related to VAR, and then there is one more chapter on stress testing, which is a continuation part of the VAR topic. Okay, once you're done with this, there are few theory chapters which are related to the credit crisis, mortgage backed securities. It is from book 3 and book 1 together. You can completely go and read those chapters in a sequence. Okay, now purposely I have not added all the chapters in the presentation, because it would have made the entire content so bulky. So I'll be sharing with you the Excel sheet. The details will be provided at the end of the session. Now, so what I've done is I've bifurcated the entire curriculum, okay, into 3 buckets for your preparation. And how should you go about when you're preparing in terms of the timeline? Like this. Okay, you should be focusing on 3 broader milestones. The first is 31st of July. Now why 31st of July? Because this is the early bird registration end date for your November exam. Right, before, if you register for the exam before this, and if you are a fresh candidate, then definitely the fees will be $950. But if you delay this, then it will be around $1,150. Okay, that's the reason I have specifically mentioned 31st of July as the first milestone in your preparation strategy. Okay, the second milestone would be end of September. Okay, I'll be talking about these things in the next slide. And the third important milestone would be end of October. Okay, your exam is going to be in the month of November. Okay, now let me take you towards the broader timeline. Okay, now what, like I mentioned in the previous slide, I had bifurcated all the 60 chapters into 3 buckets. Okay, so ideally what you should be focusing on the moment you start in. Okay, so we are right now standing at the middle of April. Okay, so we have around 1.5 months. What you can focus on, you can complete all the theory chapters from across the book. You can complete futures. There are around 5 chapters. You can complete options. There are 4 chapters, and again option pricing 3 chapters. So this should be your first bucket. Okay, so by the end of May, you should be ideally done with your 20 to 25 chapters easily. 25 chapters ke aaspas. Okay, that should be your end of May goal. Okay, once you have completed with that, you can focus on your second bucket. In your second bucket, we had entire book 2, which is quantitative analysis, entire book 2 in a flow, and portfolio management related 2 chapters. So till June end, what you can do is you can completely read the topic. And I'm only talking about reading. I'm not talking about solving of question bank. I'll come to that. Okay, then by the end of July, this was your first milestone. Okay, you should ideally be completing your third bucket, which includes your VAR chapters, your credit crisis related chapters, and bond valuation and bond hedging. Now Why am I stressing you to completely read the curriculum before 31st of July? Because when you make the payment of $950 to the institute, you should have gone through the content properly, and you'll be more confident when you make that payment. Okay, I'm not asking you to solve, I'm just asking you to go through the content, make yourself comfortable, because when you read the 60 chapters, you would come to know that out of that 60 chapter, okay, 15 chapter or 20 chapter I'm not very sure, but the rest of the chapters I'm very much sure about, so that when you prepare further you can focus on those difficult chapters more. Okay, and also it will give you a confidence to make the payment to the institute. Okay, now once you have completely read the chapters once till the end of July, what you can do is you can start your first revision. And then start solving. Okay, I've given you a bucket of 2 months, the gap of 2 months. That means the entire August month and entire September month. What you guys can do is you can start the revision and start chapter wise questions. But when you're revising, make sure that you revise 2 chapter or 3 chapters together and then go and do the solving of those individual chapters. The reason I'm asking you to do is because in the exam you have to remember the entire 60 chapters together and then go for the exam, right? So that's the reason what you should be focusing on is read those 2 3 chapters properly and then go for the question bank. So you should be ideally able to solve the 60 chapters of question bank by the end of your second milestone, which is end of September. Okay, now when you start with your October month, what you should be focusing on is focusing on your second revision and start solving your sectional test. That means entire book test or important concepts quizzes. Okay, now when I'm talking about sectional, it means you're reading the entire book one and giving a test on that book one. Okay, reading the entire book one and giving the test on book one directly. Okay, that is what you should be completing by the end of October. That is your third milestone. Okay, and once you're done with October end, you can do is you can start with your third revision and do the mock papers. Okay, do the mock papers and then go for the exam. Okay, so this is what ideally I would suggest you. How should you make sure to prepare your questions or prepare yourself for the exam? Okay, now few of the students have asked queries. I'll be taking those queries in some time. The queries which you have asked are more or less there in the last FAQ part. Okay, so a timeline of the preparation has been provided. I'll be moving towards the question bank. Okay, now when we are looking at the solving of question bank, I would suggest you not go for Swagger question bank as the only source. You should definitely solve the Swagger question bank, but you should have something else also, some stronger question bank of around 3,500 4,000 question which can help you to prepare for the exam. Okay, now when you're solving for the question bank, how should you go about? Okay, for each chapter, okay, when you have completed the solving, you should mark the questions. Which questions were you able to solve properly without any problem? There was no issue, you can mark it as tick. Okay, that means you need not worry about these questions again. Okay, there were few questions, suppose which you felt that you got the answer but you took a lot of time. Might be because you forgot the formula, okay, or you were not good with the calculator, or you could not understood the sum or the content of the question in the first place, right? So definitely you should be having a different set of marking for those kind of questions. Okay, there can be one more set of questions which you felt very difficult with there. That means these questions were not related to the Swagger concept or something. Basics of the concept was there, but the question was a bit tricky. So you can definitely provide a different marking for such kind of questions. Okay, there will be definitely few questions which you could not understand when you were solving the question bank. Okay, so you will also be providing a different marking. Now why am I asking you to do these markings? Okay, or basically to identify the questions where you felt problem when you solved the question bank for the first time. The reason being, when you're going to be doing the revision, you should be focusing on these questions only. Okay, firstly those questions where you knew the answer, you were able to solve, but the time that you took was heavy or it was a lot of time. These are the questions where you can easily cover the issues and completely bring it in your first category. That means you can completely make yourself comfortable with these questions if you read those questions once again in your revision. Okay, the main problem would be these two type of question, which is the questions where you found the questions very tricky or unique, or there were few questions which you could not understood. Okay, so those questions you should read twice or thrice when you are doing the revision, definitely. Okay, now how do you go about doing the revision for the exam? Like I said, after your end of September, you're supposed to start your second revision. Then in the month of October, you're supposed to start your third revision. So all of that revision, what when I was referring to that, what did I mention? What was my logic? Okay, you're supposed to make sure that the question bank that you have solved, okay, difficult questions, you should be revising it properly once again when you are revising the chapter. That is one part. And this is related to the previous slide which I was talking about. Okay. Make sure there are certain important chapters or topics which are generally tested in the exam. Make sure that you are completely aware about the formula, the calculation methodology, and the concepts from those chapters. Okay, then what you can also do is, if suppose you felt there were 2 or 3 5 10 chapters which you found a bit difficult, so when you're revising, your focus should also be on those chapters to minimize the damage that can happen if the questions are coming from these chapters. Because when you look at those difficult chapters, the entire chapter might not be difficult. From this entire chapter, only one page or maximum 2 3 page might be difficult. So make sure the content within that chapter which was easy, you are thorough with that content. Okay, and then you can only focus on those 2 3 pages where you found difficulty. Okay, when you've completely read the entire curriculum, once when you've solved, you would automatically come an idea, you'll get an idea, what is my strength? Okay, is it book 1, is it book 3, is it book 2 or book 4? Okay, now why am I asking you to identify this strength? Because when you're going to pick up the question in the exam, by looking at the question in a split second, you should be able to take a decision whether you are going to go ahead with this question or not, to save time. Okay, that is where your gut feeling will come into play, and that will only be sharpening, that will only get sharpened as you solve lot of questions. Okay, this identification of strength is very very important. Okay, last point, when you're revising, make sure that you do not ignore the bigger questions that you see. Why? Because the exam, FRM exam, is generally structured in such a way that the questions that they will give you will have a lot of unnecessary information. It will have a lot of theory in it. Okay, the questions might be very simple, but they want to waste your time to give you a lot of questions content. So be mentally prepared that you will be getting bigger questions, and when you see those bigger questions in your revision also, okay, so make sure that you go through them once properly. Okay, some frequently asked question, I think so I'll be able to help out with the queries with those guys with the have already asked. The first and the foremost question which I generally get is, how hard is the FRM exam? Okay, now if I tell you from my experience, okay, the difficulty level of the FRM exam has considerably come down, because if you would have given the exam in 2015 16 or before that, it was more calculation driven. But right now the pattern of the exam has been changed in such a way that they are more focused on theory. Okay, they want to understand whether your concepts are clear for the exam. Okay, so difficulty level has definitely come down. Okay, because they want more and more students to come for this exam, clear this exam. But if you're going to compare this exam with any other Indian exams, that means your college exam, your BMS exam, your graduation exam, or even MBA exams, I would say this is much more difficult than that. The reason being, this is a global education exam, and based on this certification, people or students are getting job in Canada, in Dubai, Singapore, Hong Kong. So definitely there is some worth that this exam brings in on the table, and you're not only going to compete with Indian students. It is a global exam, hence you're going to be competing with all the students across the globe. Okay, and the result is going to come on the percentile basis. Now when I'm saying percentile, it simply means that you have to be better than the other. Okay, that is where this exam gets bit difficult. Okay, and in the job market, as per my experience in the investment banking domain, people are recognized by their FRM certification, because industry know it's a difficult exam, and if you've cleared the exam, then definitely you have done something important in your life, and you can be given some difficult task in your day-to-day job activities. People get important roles by clearing these exams. So that is why this exam is hard, and it is important also for your career. Let me go and take talk about the second most question that generally I get when I talk to student, is that what is the pass percentage that we see in the exam, okay, FRM level 1 exam. Now in the FRM level 1, the general rate has been, the pass percentage has been around 45 to 50%. Okay, generally it has been 40, 45, 50%. If you're lucky, the pass percentage for that time period is going to be around 50%. Okay, now when you are looking at this number of pass 50% or 45%, what ideally is happening is that out of 100 people who are sitting, 45% are passing the exam. That means it is way better than a lot of other finance related exams where the pass percentage is very low. So definitely there are good chances for you to clear the exam if you prepare well. Okay, how much does it cost to sit for the FRM exam? Now this question is more related to the exam fee. Okay, when you go for the FRM level 1 exam, okay, then primarily you have to pay the registration fee. That registration fee is $400. That is a one-time registration fee. Then the institute is also going to ask from you exam sitting fee. That is going to be $550. That means in combination you will be paying $950. Now this $950 is basically your early bird registration. Okay, so this is what the cost that is going to be there for your level 1 exam. When you go to your level 2 exam, you will also have to pay again the exam sitting fee, that is $550. Okay, there is one more part in terms of the fee which we generally don't hear about, is the deferral fee. Suppose you paid the fee to the institute for FRM level 1, and suppose in the month of September, October, you felt that you could not go for the exam, then what you can go do is you can defer the exam by paying $200 extra to the institute, and it will go to the next May. But you can only defer once in the exam curriculum. Okay, so these were the top three questions that can be that has been asked to me. Now there are few more questions which are very focused on your preparation idea. Okay, I'll directly come to the top topic which a lot of students are also asking in the chat section. Okay, how should you prepare? How should you prepare for the exam when you're working? Okay, now this is a very tricky question. The reason being, in the pandemic we have seen the work hours have increased. People normally are getting around 1 hour 2 hour on a daily basis. Then what should be your strategy? Okay, ideally if you're getting at least 1 hour on a daily basis from now, okay, say for example from April till June, also I'm excluding weekends, okay, I'm only talking about weekdays, then that is okay. Okay, start the preparation and give at least 3 hours right now on the weekends, 3 hours Saturdays and Sundays, to cope up with those topics which you could have done in the weekdays part. After June or primarily or July, you can increase the number of working hour or study hour to 1.5 hour or 2 hours on a daily basis. Now why am I asking you to increase after July? The reason being, because over here you would be revising and also you would be solving the question bank. That is why the time will also be needed, because when you solve, you will again go to the answer and see, okay, you could not solve this entire section, what was the problem? So all of this analysis is going to take a lot of time. So hence on a daily basis after July you can increase it to 2 hour. Okay, and if you're consistent enough, there's no further increase required. On a weekend you can increase to 3 to 4 hours, and then still you should be able to prepare for the exam, right? So there was one question from Harleen. I've tried to answer this question over here. How can you prepare when you're working along with your job? I know majority of the students, 90% of the students who appear for this exam are working. So this problem is faced by all. So don't worry about it. Okay, this is the normal scenario. But what you can focus on is daily preparation of 1 hour. Go to the book, open the book, read it. That is what is the key. Consistency is the key to succeed in this exam. Okay, I'll be also taking up the queries from the chat section. So somebody is asking, where can we get past year question papers? So actual question papers from the institute are not revealed. Okay, institute gives only sample papers every year. Okay, so right now we have 2021 sample paper available. If, in fact, 2020 sample paper is also available, but the actual paper or the actual question paper that came for the exam is not available to anyone. Okay, Priyam, I have answered to your query. Harleen, I have also answered to your query. Charmi, does FRM book changes every year? Yes. Yes, but in 2021, the content for FRM level 1 has not changed. That means you can still refer to 2020 books and go for the exam. So do not worry about it. Okay. I'm also answering to your query. Do you have any idea regarding the value of FRM in the long run? Yes, it is very much valuable. The reason being, when you look at finance, okay, there are at the moment two broader certifications, which is CFA and FRM, which is there in the market, which is recognized globally. Okay, and not only in Indian sectors, that means the Indian banks like State Bank of India, Bank of Baroda also recognize them, but also the global banks, the investment banks, asset management companies, credit rating companies. Okay, all of these KPOs, they do recognize this because they have proper tuition policy, where if you are an employee of these companies and you're going for the exam, then they reimburse the exam cost if you clear the exam. That means the $950 they pay you back. Now, why are they paying you back? Because they recognize this course, right? Or else because there are so many courses in India. Why are they not reimbursing on those costs, right? And only on FRM or CFA? Because these exams have now become a benchmark. And in the future, like right now, what you see is every other candidate is having an MBA. In the future, in finance sector, you'll find students having either FRM or CFA and they're competing. Okay, so definitely, Charmi, if you're looking out to stay in the finance sector for a longer period of time, you should definitely go for FRM or CFA or both. Okay, uh, I've answered all the query mostly which have been asked to me in the chat section. I'll go to the questions which is there. How much time is normally required for the preparation? So the ballpark figure could be around 300 hours. 300 hours, but it all depends upon your sum of the past experience also. So for example, a lot of students come from quant background, they have statistical background, so they might not be worried about book 2. Okay, some of the students are already working in a bank in the operations side, so they might have some idea about book 3, which is financial markets products. So that book will definitely become easy. So this is a ballpark number of 300 hours which you can prepare throughout the preparation time that you have till November. Okay, and but ideally what you should be focusing on, every day 1 hour, weekends 3 hours till July, and then increase the daily hours to 2 hours. Okay, next part, is the FRM exam quant driven? Okay, that means, do we see a lot of calculation? Okay, so friends, I would like to clarify that in the exam you're going to be using a financial calculator. Now this financial calculator has a lot of inbuilt function, and that is the reason they're asking you to bring this calculator. So you should be aware about how to use the calculator, because majority of the calculation will be very easy, because if you know how to plug in the numbers and which button to press in, you'll get the answer. So don't worry about it that it is calculation driven or quant driven. There is some statistics part definitely, because banks, when they are working, okay, they are going to be doing the statistical calculation also. Hence the content contains statistical part, but it is not calculation driven at all. Even out of the entire 100 question I have seen lately, you would find around 60 to 70 question as theory, and the rest 30 question to 40 question will be quant driven or calculation driven. So the heavy portion of the content which is coming in the exam is theory, because they want to check your understanding on the concepts. Okay, so friends, do not worry about this if your friends or anybody is telling you okay it is heavy quant and all, right? See, if you are in the finance sector, definitely you will have to deal with quant, you cannot avoid it. Okay, and that's the reason, that is a difference that is going to get created if you want, if you are looking out for job related to high packages. That is where this certification can take you in the long run. Okay, so these are the questions that that were there. I'd like to summarize my discussion on how to prepare for your FRM level 1 November exam, make sure that you complete at least 200 to 250 hours. The ballpark number has to be around 300 hours of preparation, focused on completing one reading by 31st of July. The reason being, I'm explicitly talking about this because before you make that $950, because a huge amount, 70,000 bucks, right? So before you make that payment, you should be aware that what exactly the exam is that I'm entering, how much confident I am. Okay, that is the reason you should read a lot before 31st of July. Take the exam seriously. This is not your college exam. Okay, so do not estimate that you will read before 1 month before the exam, you will go with the exam like this. No, it is not going to happen. It's a global exam, it's a tough exam. Okay, focus on book 3 and book 4 because it has a huge weightage. Around 60 questions are going to come from these two books only. Okay, there are theory chapters, lot of theory chapters. Okay, lot of theory chapters which are there in the curriculum. Okay, make sure that you spread out those theory chapters 2 months before the exam and read one theory chapter at the end of the day. Just read it, because the more you read, the more you recollect. That is what I would suggest you for theory chapters. Okay, get a 2 week off before the exam. If you're a working professional, try to get a 2 week off. If not, then at least 1 week off, because the reason being, you should be in a position to get in the mode of preparation, because it's going to be 60 chapters together and reading together and solving for that 4 hours of the exam. Okay, so having a 2 week off or at least a 1 week off is going to be very, very helpful for you. Okay, make sure that you give at least 3 mocks before the exam, and that mock, one of the mocks should be your GARP sample paper which the institute has given you. Now, why am I asking you specifically to solve an entire 100 question mock paper? The reason being, when you're preparing, you're looking at individual chapters, you're looking at the formula, you're very much confident. But when you have to remember us entire 60 chapters in one go, that is where the real test is going to be. Okay, and that is where the problem will be identified, whether you remember a particular book, whether you remember a particular set of chapters or not. That is why the mock papers are very, very, very important. So from 1st of November, you should start giving mock papers depending upon your exam date. Okay, make sure that you're well versed with your calculator. That means make sure that you use the calculator before the September end, or basically September end. You should be able to identify that whatever question that will come, okay, if I know how to solve it, what is the flow of the calculation, I will be able to pick that in the calculator. That means by the end of September, you should not have any doubt whether you will be able to solve the calculation in the calculator or not. Okay, that is what I want you to be prepared for the exam. Okay, because in the last month, if you still keep on solving individual question, it is going to be too time consuming. Okay, you should not be confused, or you should not doubt your ability to solve in the last 1 month. That is why I'm asking you to solve as many questions before the end of September. Okay, time management is very, very important. Every question will ideally have 2 minutes of time. To make sure that when you're preparing, there is a timer on, because when you're solving an individual chapter question, you might solve a question in 3 minutes, 4 minutes, but that is not going to be helpful in the exam, because out of 100 question, you might not be able to solve it more than 60 or 70. There's no point in that. Okay, so please make sure that you focus on the time management when you're solving each question. 2 minutes on an average should be given to each question. Okay, I'll quickly give you a brief about ourselves. We are Fintelligence. I'm Ganesh Nayak, and I basically train FRM and CFA students for the exam. Okay, and for the exam preparation, we have a live online batch which we're going to be having, which we're going to be starting from the 24th of April. The next week, we're going to be starting out with the live batch for November exam, where we're going to be covering more than 120 hours of live session till September. We're going to be completing the entire portion. Okay, we're going to be giving you 3000 plus question, that is chapter wise question. Then we'll also be giving you sectional test, an important concept quiz. Okay, further, I'll also be giving you 100% assistance with respect to placement. That means we have a lot of students who are already working in the industry. We have tie-ups with the placement sectors that will help you to at least get the information about the jobs which are there in the market. Okay, we also provide you recorded backup, so when we are part of the online lecture sessions and you miss any particular session, then you can go and go through the recorded content as much as possible, as much as possible. We are not putting any restriction over there. We'll also be giving you mock papers for your preparation, right? Similarly, if you cannot come to the online session, we'll be giving you video lecture package also. That means you can prepare. And in both of these package, the online package and the video lecture package, I'll be connected to you every month. There will be a monthly call with me to discuss how you're going to prepare for the exam. Okay, so that, and you will be getting the recorded lectures for all the curriculum. We'll be also be providing you with question banks, sectional test, our own notes will also be provided. Okay, and you'll also be getting a placement help from our side. This is a video lecture package. There is one more package which is only focused on test series preparation. So where we'll be giving you past sample papers, we'll be giving you mock papers from our side, 60 chapter wise quizzes, sectional test, and all of that. Okay, so that will be available. This package is only for students who are preparing on their own and they need question bank to enhance their preparation. Okay, so there are three packages: the live online batch, the video lecture package, and the test series package. Okay, now in case you need some free material, so there are a lot of free material which are available with us, which we can share with you. Send your WhatsApp on this number with your name, FRM level 1 and location. We'll share the details with you where you can get the study material. Also, I've created an Excel plan. Okay, how should you go about preparing for the exam, which chapter you should start with. Okay, so I've created that Excel plan which you can easily get in my if you send out a WhatsApp message on this number, we'll share that detail with you. And right now, in case of any queries which is there, I'll try to address the queries which we have received on the chat section. I'll be there for some time so that I can address your queries. Okay, so Priyam, answering to your query, what about the new computer based program? Does reading speed goes down? Okay, so CBT exam, okay, definitely the reading speed is going to go down. The reason being, when you have a paper pencil exam, in the same page you might be able to see 2 questions, 3 questions. So in a split second you are actually able to decide whether you will going to start the mock paper or start the exam from the first question or from the 100 question, right? So you had a lot of flexibility to go through the question set. But when you look at the computer based exam, you have to individually click on the question to see what that question is. So definitely the reading speed is also going to get reduced a bit, and your question selection will also take a hit. But this is going to be for all the students, not specific to you. Everybody will face the problem. That's the idea. The key to this, key to solve this problem is, the more questions you solve in front of computer, okay, the more habit you have at looking at the question and going towards the answer. Okay, so Priyam, I would suggest you, whatever test series that you're looking at, look at the test series which can help you to accustom you for the question bank. Now a lot of students, what they tell me is, we will solve the chapter wise questions on paper and pencil and we'll give the mock paper in the exam. I would suggest this doesn't work, because you have done the entire preparation in paper and pencil and then you're going for the test series or the question bank, the final mock paper on the computer based. I would suggest this is the entire true nature of the exam you will not understand. Okay, let me take one more query from Charmi. What if I want to give the exam in May 22, then can I use the books for 2020 or 2021? No, I would not suggest you don't do it. You can start the preparation, but there is going to be some change, and that change will be available by 1st of December every year. Okay, but there are certain concepts like book 3 and book 4,